Hello! Today's show is a listener question special on the Total Soccer Show. Before it begins, I'm here to remind you that if you would like to submit a question to us to answer on the show, it's totalsoccershow.com/questions. Questions with an S on the end. Also, if you support the Total Soccer Show at $10 a month or more at totalsoccershow.com/join, we guarantee to answer one of your questions per month on TSS. So it's totalsoccershow.com/questions to ask a question, and it's totalsoccershow.com/join to support the show. Thank you for listening. On with the show. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who never comes off his line early. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Never, to the extent that my U12 coach once berated me for it.
Did he really? Oh, so you did do it once?
She did. Yes, she did. Yes. It was not fun. And then I came off my line blindly and didn't even go for the ball because I didn't want to get yelled at again. Wasn't a great goalkeeper. Did it go in? Both times, absolutely.
So if people have been on the Twitter recently, you probably will have seen the story of poor Jimmy Corcoran. So Jimmy Corcoran is the Irish U17 keeper. He's at the U17 Euros. In the quarter-final penalty shootout against the Netherlands, he had to save a PK from Dutch striker Deschwan Redan. He did. He celebrated. He looked up. The referee showed him a yellow card. He'd received a yellow earlier in the game, so then he got a red card. He was sent off, and then a replacement had to go in goal. Replacement conceded. Right. There was outrage because we never see this.
I mean, there was outrage for a variety of reasons, not least of which was the fact that it eliminated the Irish team from the U17 European Championships. That wasn't too popular. The fact that he was dismissed seemed like it seemed a bit rough. Maybe less so now that
seemed hard.
We've done some researching, yes.
Okay.
Now, I will say, full disclosure, though, that I was a late riser today, or at least late looking at Twitter. I was actually an early riser. I just coached all morning.
Oh.
By the time I went to look at
last night. I was a night owl.
Oh, there we go. By the time I went to look at it, the tweet was removed. So I have not seen the footage. I've just read 14,000 different takes on it.
That's as good as seeing it in many ways, right?
Well, it is, except that most of them were articles saying...
It's like Rashomon to you.
Well, except that, if Rashomon were all explained to me from different tabloid newspapers, then it would be that. Because instead of...
It was a bad movie in many ways.
It was just so many headlines being like, maybe it would. So many headlines being like, watch this happen. And then I would click to watch it happen, and there were just still images. So thank you, British tabloids. I hate you all the more.
So here's the controversy: keepers do come off their line at least a step or so all the time in penalty shootouts. Most of the time, most of the time it just doesn't work, so then it doesn't matter anyway, right? Because when there's an infringement by the keeper, if the goal goes in, it doesn't matter, the goal stands. But you do see keepers come off the line and make a save quite a lot of times, and the refs will mostly just let it go. And it suddenly seems that everything's come down on top of poor Jimmy Corcoran.
Well, especially because, by all accounts, it wasn't a thing where he was doing it routinely. He kept being off of his line. It feels sort of like this was the referee being like, all right, I got to take a stand here. I got to make a decision. And I know that you I think from your tweet, you were saying that maybe he left 1 foot behind. It kind of depends on when the ball was struck.
Yeah, but there's also no definition of what leaving your line means. So if just having 1 foot touching the line doesn't necessarily make it okay. I'm also not sure. But I did on Twitter reach out to TSS official referee consultant, Mr. Scott Zawadski, sir, and asked him, so basically, what has happened here? And essentially, Scott told us that there's a new guideline since last summer that refs really need to enforce this and card keepers who come off their line, even if they've already got a yellow and it results in a red card. So this is just the referee following his guidelines and suffering the consequences in terms of RTE commentators being not happy with him. That's the Irish channel. And also people on Twitter.
And I bet he does not care, because the reality is, from the standpoint
bet he's deleted his account.
Well, that could be. But from the standpoint of he's done his job, which is to say, it seems unfair, it seems harsh. when you talk to an official, when you read the rules, them's the rules. And so he has done his job from the rule book. And so I guess I feel like he's not going to get any sort of punitive action because he enforced the rules correctly.
There you go.
He's just going to get a lot of, this seems so unfair, this is so harsh, sort of tweets in his direction.
Can I say one thing I really liked about this is in his sort of moment of despair, Jimmy Corcoran, his teammates really gathered around him, right? Like he was in tears, you know, he's a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. All his teammates sort of put their arm around him, like hugged him, told him it was going to be okay. They all sort of united. A centre-half, what's his name? I've got his name here, and I wanted to do it because I think I could pronounce it correctly. Oisin McKenty went in goal to replace him. So everybody tried to make the best of it. So it's almost a good formative thing for the Irish team.
And what team was Jimmy Corcoran and Oisin McKenty playing for again? I forget.
The Irish team.
Yeah. And I do want to say, though, in the grand scheme of things, there are worse things. I wrote this joke just now. There are worse things.
Did you write it in your head?
I wrote down an abbreviated note. There are worse things that could happen to you for crossing a line. Like, say, if you're Rick James and you're a habitual line stepper, you might get beaten up by Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy.
Oh, this went over my head.
It's from Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories and the Chappelle Show.
Yes.
He refers to Rick James as a habitual line stepper.
So this Euro U17 thing, it's not just sort of a wacky incident and a topical reference to start the show with. It's also, for me, it's a reminder of how big, dramatic, odd stuff happens at international tournaments.
It sure does.
And we are gearing up for the World Cup.
We sure are.
Right? This is sort of the appetizer before the World Cup comes around.
I'm sure there's a fancy term for that. I do not know it, but yes.
Pre-app?
I doubt that's it.
Gummy bears you snuck into your pocket while you're waiting for the menus to come.
Go.
That's what
there
it is.
we go.
So World Cup rosters, preliminary rosters, are being named slowly but surely. And we've already got some sort of odd news here and there, right?
Yes. Which one do you want to go with?
I think the oddest one, or the most sort of World Cup story feeling one, is Paulo Guerrero for Peru.
Oh, I thought you meant like uplifting and happy. And
not all
Fagner.
of them. Some of them are. I mean, there's uplifting and happy. Do you want to start uplifting and happy?
No, I think we should go with Guerrero.
All right. So Paulo Guerrero, named to the Peru squad for the World Cup, is currently serving a 14th-month ban, and his ban was recently increased to cover the World Cup as well, right?
Well, it's confusing. So it was actually FIFA shortened it from a 14-month ban or a 12-month ban to a 6-month ban, which then would have expired in time for him to play in the World Cup, which is why he was included.
Yeah.
However, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or no, I think it was like the International Doping Agency appealed it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They upheld the initial ruling, so he will actually be suspended for the World Cup.
So Paulo Guerrero officially right now is suspended from global soccer during the World Cup despite being on Peru's roster. FIFPro, the World Players Union, have asked for an emergency meeting with FIFA.
Right.
And as I understand it, he's accused of taking basically a cocaine-like substance. He claims that it was some leaves in a tea that he was drinking.
Contaminated tea.
So it was an accident. I don't know how much that holds water, or once you get to a thing like this, it's really hard to prove that it was an accident or that it was deliberate. It's only possible to prove that it was in your system.
In retrospect, we really should have transitioned into this story from the Rick James bit, since he has numerous thoughts on the usage of cocaine.
I'm not familiar with his cocaine usage.
Again, from that sketch. But so I mean, it's one of those stories where, like, right now it seems like it is the correct decision, right up until it turns out that he actually did accidentally order the wrong tea or something, and then maybe that does change a little bit.
And then he's robbed of a World Cup. We just don't know, do we?
Yeah.
Should we move on to a happier story?
Sure.
How about the aforementioned Fagner, the Brazilian right back who was named to the Brazil squad. Somewhat of a surprise because he's not Dani Alves. So it was expected that it would be Dani Alves and Danilo would be the right backs for Brazil. Dani Alves got a cruciate ligament injury in the French Cup final, definitely out. So there's basically Chiche, the Brazil coach, has made it pretty clear that he knows his World Cup roster and everything was sort of set. So Fagner seems like the one surprise inclusion that's managed to get himself on there through Dani Alves' misfortune.
Yep.
And there's a great video of him watching the squad announcement with what I believe is his family, and they go wild and celebrate. It's a really sweet video.
So that said, though, like with the Guerrero story, I had read the part where the ban was reduced. So it was like, oh no, he is going to be able to play. And then you came through with the reality of, oh no, they've actually increased it again. And with this one, it seems like you're also going to rein on it a little bit.
A little bit, because this video, which it's touching no matter what, right? So I want to get that out there. It's being reported as Fagner finds out he's in the Brazil squad while watching TV with his family. Like, this is the moment he finds out. Because of Chiche announcing all his squad in advance. And the way that, coaches phone players and tell them, hey, you've made it before the official announcement goes out to the public, right? So I am not convinced that Fagner found out he was going to the World Cup with Brazil by watching TV. He's not a contest winner. He didn't phone in and he was the 100th caller and he gets to play right back. You know what I'm saying?
What I'm choosing to believe, though, is that he knew, but maybe hadn't told his family. That's what I'm hoping for, because his wife/girlfriend/fiance, her reaction seems incredibly genuine. Now, maybe that's just enthusiasm because it's the first time she's seen him included, but I like to think that he got a phone call and maybe just suggested to the entire family, why don't you all come over? We'll see if I make the team.
There we go. That's a nice middle ground.
That's the way I'm choosing.
Maybe Chiche, the coach, was sort of like, hey, Fagner, you're in, but don't tell anyone. I'm going to replace you with Rafinha, that guy from Bayern Munich.
And then he watched the Champions League semi-final and was like, nah, never mind.
And he told everybody. Yep. He took out an ad.
Well, now that we've done a semi-happy one, should we do another sort of sad one?
What is it?
Munir El-Haddadi. This is another one that sort of has drawn some criticism from folks around the world because Munir El-Haddadi wants to play for, I believe, Morocco, but has previously played 14 minutes for Spain in a qualifier, so is officially tied to Spain. He appealed it. That appeal was rejected. The long-form answer to the appeal will be issued later on, but basically it means, nope, you're Spanish, you can never play for another team.
The short form is no, right? Yeah. The rules are if you play in a sort of A match, an official match, a qualifier or a tournament, you are cap-tied. There's no one-time switches. One-time switches are after friendlies and youth tournaments only. I'll say this for Munir El-Haddadi and Morocco, maybe worth a shot from distance. This is like a half-court shot. This is like the guys that, speaking of contest winners, and you get to take the shot from half-court and you win $1 million if you sink it. You may as well turn up and have a shot, right? This is what's going on with Munir El-Haddadi.
Maybe. I would still say, maybe it's worth turning up. I think you're right. That's what they were doing. Yeah. It just still seems like if you like are accused of shoplifting and you're like, yeah, but I only shoplifted 2 Skittles, so that doesn't really matter, right? It's like, well, no, you still stole. Like, you still did something. Like, it is still the case that, like, the rule is if you've played in a qualifier, then you are cap-tied. So to be like, yeah, but it was only 14 minutes, like, I understand why that seems harsh, and maybe that rule changes down the road to, like, you must have made 3 appearances, but it is what it is right now. So appealing it on those grounds doesn't necessarily make sense. That said, if I were in his shoes, I can't say I'd do anything different.
But FIFA's response must have been like, oh, so you want us to change the entire way we structure this and change all the rules so you can play?
And
sorry, no.
Everything into chaos a month before the World Cup? Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, imagine all the other applications they would get all of a sudden.
Yep.
Yeah.
Although maybe Jonathan Gonzalez then switches back, so who knows?
A 2-time switch.
Yeah.
A 2-time switch.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there some England news? The England squad has not been announced. I've only seen rumours.
Many rumours.
One of them is that England has no heart.
That is correct.
Which is a thing everybody always says after tournaments. This time we'll know before.
Yeah, exactly. Because it seems like Joe Hart will not be included in the provisional roster.
This is a weird... All I've seen is the rumour on Twitter that he's been told he's not going, and that has somehow slipped out before the official squad announcement.
Yes. And I can't say that... Actually, I can say that I'm surprised because it seemed like maybe he was going to be one of those glue guys, for lack of a better term. But...
Like in Airplane.
What's it?
Like in Airplane.
It, like, as in making a model airplane, or as in the film Airplane?
As in the film Airplane.
Now you've lost me. Now you've gone over my head. There we go.
Someone will get it.
I'm going to make you explain it.
Airplane went over your head?
Oh, that's just terrible. I'm moving on from you, as Daryl does his celebratory pun dance, which I feel like is probably a thing at this point. No, but I think from an on-field results, performance standpoint, it kind of makes sense given that there are many other mostly okay English goalkeepers to choose from.
Here's my prediction. England will have no heart, but they will have the Pope. So it probably is better.
Yes. Finishing that one out, the rumors are also that Jack Wilshere will not be called up, nor will John Joe Shelby.
So Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I think, makes it.
We shall see.
He's a Southgate favourite. I think he's in. I'm really excited for Thursday all of a sudden.
Yep. Let's see. We shall see. We'll hold our breath.
Speaking of Thursday will be our first World Cup group-by-group preview. We will be previewing World Cup Group A.
Wait, what?
World Cup Group A, Russia, Egypt, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia. We will get into all those teams. We'll have lots of details for you. We're really excited about our World Cup previews. Spread the word. We want a signal boost. We want everybody to know that World Cup previews are coming and that Total Soccer Show is the place to get your World Cup soccer podcast.
I like the idea, not that the World Cup is coming, but that World Cup previews are coming.
World Cup previews are coming. Yeah. As Ned Stark famously says.
You beat me to it. I was going to say the lesser known Stark slogan. But until that roster comes, we do have several listener questions to get to.
Oh, yeah, we do. Great great ones. I got to say, this is a good collection.
I agree. Starting with Steve Renard, who asks, what is the culture of betting or gambling in the UK as compared to the United States?
More is the answer.
The number of teams sponsored by bookmakers seems to suggest that it is more accepted and more common than in the United States. But is that really the case? Is it just a thing people do in the UK? Is there class division to it?
So that's a lot of questions. But really just one question. And the answer is yes, there is way more gambling in the UK than in the United States. And the reason you see it on jerseys so much is that people can essentially just go to their high street and walk into a bookies, a gambling shop, and just place bets on. There's usually horse racing on TV. You can place bets on football, like first scorer, whatever, place bets on boxing. It is a very casual thing that a lot of sports fans do every single day.
Okay, so important questions to start off. Did you say high street?
Yes.
What is that?
It's like a main street.
Oh, okay.
It's basically main street.
I'm learning so many things.
So every small town has a high street.
Okay.
Yeah. And on that high street, you will find, I'm trying to think of things that people know, like Wetherspoon's Pub is like the big pub chain, but you'll also see like a William Hill or a Ladbrokes or a Paddy Power, all the big betting chains. And the reason they stay in business so much is because, no surprise, bookies make money because the odds are not in your favour. The odds are always in their favour.
Yep.
It's just worth noting.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's take a few of these questions then. So first off, is there class division to gambling, or is it something that is sort of ubiquitous across all of England and the United Kingdom?
I would say it's ubiquitous, but it seems to be more part of working class culture. And I say that as a member of a working class family, grew up in a working class town. It is mostly working class people when you go into a betting shop.
How's that Masters in Film working out with you amongst
how's
the
that what?
That Masters in Film working out for you amongst the working class?
I mean, I don't tell the people in my town that that's what I do. So the other thing is, this is now advanced beyond just this ties into the class thing. Yeah. This is advanced beyond just the betting shops. It's also, there are now apps, right? You have apps on your phone, so you can basically just sit at home and place bets on anything you want to place bets on. Sky Television, which televises a lot of the Premier League, has their own sort of white-labelled app, Sky Bet. There's a Sky Bet channel where you can literally sit in front of your TV and place bets, and you will get ads at halftime of soccer matches where, for a time when I was there, it was Ray Winston. You know Ray Winston?
Oh, yeah.
Will say, in his best sort of Cockney working class accent, he'll come on your TV and say it's like it was an Arsenal game and it's 0-0. He'll come on and say, Welbeck to score next to 8-1. Core blimey, those are stonking good odds, governor. And he will sort of encourage you to make a bet at half-time. It is a little bit like Minority Report, where the ads are weirdly targeted at you.
That's frightening and interesting.
I think people at home don't find it frightening, but when I go home and I haven't been seeing that, it feels a little bit like a dystopian nightmare to have Ray Winston telling me to place bets at halftime of a game I'm watching, and he'll know sort of, because he'll have pre-recorded different versions, he'll know what the score is, that there hasn't been a first scorer yet, for example, so they'll play the version for first scorer.
I see.
Yeah.
Yikes. See, the thing that, I think is particularly interesting for me, at least, is when I listen to UK-based podcasts, and that is suddenly there's the pre-recorded segment of what's the bet for this week? And sometimes they try to blend it into the content.
Yes.
And that's the stuff where...
It's like advertorial gambling content, but sponsored by Bet365 or some other gambling company.
And I think I would rather have it be sort of very obvious... I almost would prefer Ray Winston screaming at me to make a bet than sort of this subtle, here's the insider trade where, it actually turns out that, this is going to happen. And nobody knows it, but if you put £50 down, you might win £100. You probably won't, but you might.
But I will say to UK listeners that it'll be very obvious that it's branded content because gambling and gambling advertising is so pervasive everywhere.
Yeah, and a big part of that...
You can tell from my voice that I'm maybe not a fan of gambling. I don't think it should be illegal, but it's not something I enjoy doing.
I'll say, for me, I'll say I'm not a fan of gambling. It's just because it's more or less illegal, quasi-illegal in the United States.
Yeah.
There are certain, tracks, like horse tracks you can go to bet, and off-site gambling and Indian casinos, and then you can go to Vegas. You have those areas where it's legal. So I've done a little bit of gambling here and there, but it's not something that I have a particular passion for, nor do I have the knowledge that might help me be good at it or theoretically good at it. So for me, it's just a thing that has never really entered my world that much.
I would, to give you a little more insight into why people enjoy it in the UK as well, the people who don't have a gambling problem, I've got some friends who will literally just make a game more interesting where I have a small bet on who will score first. And these are guys who know some soccer stuff, right? So they'll make an informed choice, and maybe they'll think it'll be Danny Welbeck, and it just makes a dullish game more interesting. So there's a lot of people using it in that way.
The one time that I've done something like that, I really did genuinely enjoy it, which was there was like the pub that we would all go to in Istanbul, which was actually called a pub. It's not just me like stealing, culturally appropriating the British terms. But we would do, it was a good way to get all of these people who don't otherwise care about soccer involved, because I think it was like you put in 5 lira and you get three players' names from the first game.
Yes.
And then you sort of like know those people, and if they score, you get the pot.
But you do that amongst yourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no like big company overseeing it. I prefer that type of gambling.
Yeah.
Friendly gambling amongst friends.
Yeah. And that's where, like, with the recent Supreme Court decision, it's led a lot to wonder, like, will there still be March Madness brackets, or is that a thing that will be so interesting?
So before we talk about the Supreme Court decision and the effect it might have on American soccer, would it be illegal to do the type of thing you just said you did in the Turkish pub here in the US? Like, it's not a licensed bet, it's just a bet amongst friends and money exchanges?
I don't know the answer to that. I would say that I think if you are anybody affiliated with a university or a college program, then yes, it's definitely illegal.
Okay.
Because I remember, Rick something, I can't remember his name, from Washington or Washington State. He got in trouble for participating in a bracket way back when he was a college coach. Okay. So you definitely can't like make your own bracket, because that could be
not if you're involved in the sport, right?
Exactly.
That's the problem.
And so my guess would be that it's probably not legal, but it's not necessarily illegal either, in the sense that I don't think police are going to kick open the door to your home and be like, what are you guys doing, betting on March Madness? You never know, though.
So the Supreme Court decision, essentially, without getting into the politics of it, essentially made it so that it strikes down a 1992 federal law that prohibited states from authorizing sports betting in the United States, except for Nevada, for some odd reason. But so that's all going to change. It looks like in the... Really? It looks like in the near future, states around the US will now be able to legalize gambling, and you could start having a lot more access to sports betting if you're a casual soccer fan. It also means you may start getting, for example, Major League Soccer teams with gambling sponsors.
I mean, I'd be shocked if you don't have that in the next 2 years.
2 years?
Shocked. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I mean, if it's legal, it's money.
It's a source of money for Major League Soccer.
I was going to say it's money left on the table. I don't know if that's a pun or not, but it is. But it is. I mean, if it's now legal, then Major League Soccer, especially as a single entity, where every club or team, will then be obligated to have that sponsor on their website or what have
that's
you.
Interesting. Yeah.
Then it's a lot of money that MLS could potentially make.
So you're saying instead of like with the Premier League, if you've got Stoke sponsored by one betting company and I know another team sponsored by a different betting company, MLS could just sell one betting partner sponsorship for all 20-something teams, depending on what year it is.
Yep.
That's interesting. Did you see MLS's statement about it?
I did not.
They said basically I'm paraphrasing, but they tentatively welcomed it, but they want to work together to make sure it doesn't open any doors to match fixing.
Yeah, that means they're into it. That really does, because it is still a thing.
Covering their bases, kind of.
Gambling is a weird thing where I think...
They said only fix the matches in the early part of the season.
Yeah, of course.
Don't fix the playoffs. That's what they said.
Yeah, well, the middle part where it gets kind of boring, you got to add some spice to it. I do think gambling in this country, I'll say from my experience, not even experience, but just from my opinion, I know a lot of other people have much more familiarity with gambling, but I do think everybody has done it to some extent, be that a $5 wager on a game or I bet you I can do this. You have that, and I think that is sort of a common...
I bet you I can jump over that river.
I bet you I can throw shoes over a building.
Yeah.
I believe that's the British office, what they bet on in the end. But I think it's something that a lot of people have familiarity with, but I do think because of the federal law against it, because of sort of the connections to the mafia and illegal activities, I do think it has a weird thing where people will be slow to publicly embrace it.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
large organizations will be slow to publicly embrace it, so you'll get those sort of watered down, we are interested, but obviously we don't want to do anything wrong, and we don't want to offend anybody, and we don't want there to be any problems, and we're not going to let any gambling happen amongst our players, but maybe we will. We'll see. But no, we're totally against it. Like I feel like that's the kind of approach that companies and teams and franchises are going to take.
All right, well, obviously we'll keep an eye on this as it develops over the next, Taylor says, 2 years.
That's my guess.
Yeah, okay.
Money talks, man. Money talks.
Next question. John Youngblood wants to know, what are the differences and nuances between different pressing systems? I'm a Spurs fan and my buddy is a Liverpool fan, and it seems every time we face off, there's the narrative that the styles are the same. However, Mauricio Pochettino's system seems quite different to Jurgen Klopp's to me. So we can focus on Spurs-Liverpool here, or we can focus on different pressing. But John's essential question is, what are the differences and nuances between different pressing systems?
Let's start with Tottenham and Liverpool then,
okay,
since that's the two in question. Because I would say he's right that they both play a pressing system that utilizes certain key factors in similar ways, but I think there are definitely noticeable differences.
And I think this is an important question because I think he's right that a lot of times people will say, oh, they're a pressing team.
Yeah.
But I think it's so common now to have teams that press that what's really important is the way they press and what they're trying to do.
Agreed.
And their style of doing it and method of doing it. I think it's time we started digging into the details of the different ways of doing it.
And it is worth noting that if you Google, not trying to criticize John, but if you Google what are the differences between Liverpool and Tottenham's presses, there are 15 different articles about it.
Really?
Because I think it is a very
That's interesting because I just use my own observations to write my answers here.
Well, you're very talented. But there's a very good one, Talking Tottenham Tactics, which might have a slight bias on this one.
That's a great name for a website.
They did a good breakdown, and basically the gist that I'm going to take away from it is Liverpool, it's more strangely about their attacking approach, that their pressing system sets up their attack, whereas Tottenham's press is more about a defensive approach.
So the way I've got this, it sounds like you've got more detail, but I boil this down to Spurs want to force you into places where your only option is to kick the ball long, and then Spurs will win the ball back because they've got big defensive midfielders like Eric Dyer or Wanyama or Dembele and big centre-backs, and then Spurs win the ball back and then they build from there. Whereas Liverpool want to sort of direct you and pressure you into a place where you will cough up the ball, and then Liverpool can essentially dribble and pass and move at you and get you on a quick counter-attack.
I would agree with all that. I would say the phrase that I had not heard before researching this one is, which I now am obsessed with, Liverpool are about forcing you into the suboptimal pass, which is the pass that you think, oh, that's on, that looks good, but in reality, it's on and it looks good because they want you to think it's on and looks good. And there are many examples of a Liverpool player.
To set traps.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Liverpool player. If I'm the, I won't go Tottenham for purposes of this one. That could be confusing. If I'm a Brighton player and you're the Liverpool player, I might get 5 yards away and that pass looks on, but the reason I'm 5 yards away is because you've let me get 5 yards away, but you are still ready to pounce. And as soon as that ball is played in, you're already reacting to it faster than I am. You poke it away, and then Liverpool, it sets them up to break the way we've seen them break time and time again this season, and that's where I say it's more about setting up their attack versus forcing the other team to concede possession, and then you build from there.
I think that's a really good way to enumerate, is that the correct word, the differences between Liverpool and Spurs' press. And I think that one of the key things we hit on there, it's not just about the pressing part of it, but it's about what you want to do when you get the ball, where you want to get the ball.
Yep.
Fair?
Yeah.
I actually think if you want to read more on this, Bobby Warshaw published a really good article for MajorLeagueSoccer.com, MLSsoccer.com, about the Red Bulls versus NYCFC game. And he pointed out some of the things the Red Bulls did when they pressed NYCFC in that recent 4-0 win. And one thing he highlighted was watch what Bradley Wright-Phillips does.
Yep.
So, because if you think of the simple version of a press is you apply pressure to the other team, right? But then the more complicated versions is what your triggers are of when you pounce and where you're trying to direct the other team to go. Bradley Wright-Phillips stood between the two centre-backs of NYCFC the whole time. So when NYCFC centre-backs have the ball, he already has cut the field in half. He has sliced it in half so that the one centre-back can't go across field to the other centre-back. So then the rest of the Red Bulls know he's going the opposite direction, which is probably to the right back. So then the rest of the Red Bulls can crowd the right back out. That's how the New York Red Bulls press worked.
Yeah. And I want to say to that point that I think a lot of times, like when you hear press, it just sounds like, oh yeah, you play a high press. Everybody has somebody on them. They're all man marked. Eventually, they're going to cough the ball up, and that is roughly the way it works to some extent. But I think sometimes
that's like the basic level, right?
Yeah.
That's the freemium version.
Yeah. But if you are a coach who maybe is just like, okay, everybody go run around and cause problems, the big difference with, say, like Tottenham and Liverpool and that sort of approach is just that all of those players know exactly when they're supposed to step, exactly how they're supposed to step, how they're supposed to cut off options, so that if I come running at you full speed, Daryl Grove, you might be able to just sidestep me and then make an easy pass. So I've got to know the angle and how to slow down and how to block off an option while somebody else comes in, and we do the hunting and packs thing. So it's much more nuanced than just everybody run around and somebody hit somebody.
I think one of the big things to look for if you're looking out for this is triggers. So this is again from the Bobby Warshaw article. I started off by saying that I observed all my own stuff. Now I'm talking about an article I read.
I was going to let it slide.
Is that Red Bulls did a thing where once the passer passes the ball back to the original passer, so like say a right back plays it forward to centre mid's under pressure, plays it back to the right back, that's the trigger, is when the guy who plays the ball gets it straight back because there was nowhere else to go, then you all charge and crowd that guy. So you've got to have those triggers all the time, and that's essential to coordinating the press, getting everybody on the same page. Same with Liverpool, right? Like you said, they want you to think there's an easy pass on, but it's the rest of the team know that you think there's an easy pass on and they're ready to take advantage of it.
This is correct, yeah. Ooh. And then I would say the other thing is that if you've never, we've talked about it before, but I believe it's is it the Dutch 78 team? That's the one that's
74.
74.
Yeah.
That's the wave, that is what I'm going to call it. It's just the most entertaining thing to watch because it is just orange jerseys, like 8 of them just flying at one player.
And I think that was early, right? That was early in terms of pressing, so it was a surprise.
Everybody seemed wildly overwhelmed by it at a time when if you just played it over the top, it would have been very problematic.
I think there's footage of Uruguay being like, oh, what is this?
And then just kicking. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And I don't mean kicking long, I mean just kicking players. Yeah. That happened a lot too.
And of course, one of the main things you need to do is forecheck your ball thief.
Oh, that too.
That was the Tyler Adams quote of what he did to Maxi Morales. Read more on that at prosoccerusa.com.
Did you see my eyes glaze over? Is that what you saw there? 2 more questions to get to, but first we want to get to today's sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Roughneck Scarves, makers of Major League Soccer scarves and also assorted national team scarves. So this summer you can support MLS or you can support a national team at the World Cup by getting a scarf at roughneckscarves.com.
You could do that. You could create a custom scarf. We like to come up with ideas for custom scarves, and by that I mean we like to outsource the creation of custom scarves. Daryl Grove asked, if you were to design a custom Roughneck scarf to represent the MLS 2018 season so far, I almost said 2016, that would be less immediate. So to represent the 2018 MLS season, what would it look like? Eric Freeman says an angry Taylor Twellman on the front and an angrier Taylor Twellman on the back.
I am loving Taylor Twellman's rants because they are passionate and genuine, but they're also well thought out. Like he's made at least bullet points and knows where he's going with his rants.
I do enjoy that whoever is with him in the booth or with him in studio just knows to just let it go. Like don't try to interject, just back off till he's done.
Yep.
Or passes out.
The only problem is when he does it on MLS Rewind, you know the show that they just started on ESPN Plus, that studio's too echoey. So when he starts yelling, it echoes. They need some acoustic foam. In that MLS Rewind studio.
I mean, we could do it for them.
We could. MLSsoccer.com. Hit us up. Let us know. We'll tell you where to get some good acoustic foam.
I don't hear no echoes in here.
Philip Gibson is scouting. Philip Gibson says for his scarf he would have on one side a lion saying, I have arrived. Wonder who that could be. On the other side is every other MLS team looking menacing and saying, we've been waiting.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Shay Kennedy says it would just be a #SaveTheCrew scarf.
Yes, that's a good one. DM says a 2018 MLS Cup sounder scarf with one end quickly unraveling.
It's harsh but fair. Soccer Never Sleeps, Funnel 1. It would have Zlatan yelling at his teammates on one side and a picture of Atlanta United taking a PK on the other.
That'll be Joseph Martinez
flying through the air.
Yeah, I'm flying through the air right now.
And maybe it's good.
Yeah. Did you get that Zlatan was the lion in the
I did.
Phil Gibson?
I did.
Okay, just making sure.
Took me a minute. I was like, Orlando City? Are all? What? But then I realized.
Zlatan should have signed for Orlando.
That would have made sense. Yeah. Still could have walked up the line.
So you can create a custom scarf at roughneckscarves.com if you want to raise money for a non-profit or for a club you run or anything like that. That's a great way to do it. But if you go and just shop and buy an individual scarf, like an MLS scarf, they're the official MLS scarf providers, or a national team scarf, you can get 20% off. Everybody knows by now, right? Roughneck Scarves has been advertising for a long time. 20% off at Roughneck Scarves if you use the code Total Soccer Show, all one word. No spaces in there, Taylor.
All uppercase.
If you want. If you want.
I do want. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's program. Thank you to John Martin for our next question.
Yeah, let's do it.
For you, Dale Grove, what injury do you recall having the most significant impact on a team? For example, an important player getting injured being a root cause of a team being relegated.
So an injury that you think has the most significant impact on a team. One example that John gave was Stu Holden at Bolton, because Bolton got themselves into a lot of trouble after Stu Holden's injury.
Yep.
I went kind of personal with this with two that I remember just hitting me close to home. An 18-year-old Wayne Rooney at Euro 2004.
Talk about it.
So Euro 2004 in Portugal. England were finally looking really good in an international tournament. And it was, quote-unquote, golden generation time, right? Gerrard, Lampard, Beckham, Ashley Cole, all that. With an 18-year-old Rooney partnering Michael Owen up front, we were burning through the group. Rooney scored 2 goals against Switzerland, 2 goals against Croatia. He was that sort of unstoppable new player on the scene. England were 1-0 up against Portugal in the quarterfinal. After 27 minutes, Rooney got in a tangle with a Portuguese centre-back. I can't remember who it was now, and injured his ankle. Darius Vassell came on instead. England lost on penalty kicks. Wayne Rooney it's the best England have looked. It's the most I've felt like they'll go deep in this tournament since 96. Rooney's never had a good international tournament since. Every 2 years since then, with the exception of 2008, I've been thinking, is this the time that Wayne Rooney sort of lives up to the promise of that summer of 2004?
You're still saying it in present tense, by the way.
He could have a good summer at Audi
okay.
Field.
Okay, then.
But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost the golden generation's best chance. And also, it turned out to be the high point of Wayne Rooney's international career.
Yikes.
Also, Paul Scholes retired after that tournament. So it had all these knock-on effects. It could have been something else entirely.
So you're blaming Wayne Rooney for Paul Scholes
We could have been the Greece.
You could have been.
I've got one more, but
sure.
I would like to turn the table over to you.
Sure. I mean, first I'll say, I think it's a strange thing where I think if you support a larger club, as I do with Manchester United, you can have players like Owen Hargreaves was the one who I had a lot of expectations about when he first signed, and then that kind of went off the rails.
Yeah.
But I think when you have no
You
salary,
almost didn't win the Premier League and the Champions League.
There it is. See, that's the thing is when you have all the money, if one player kind of flops, you still have the ability to have a bunch of other players who can cover for it.
This sounds like we're not doing a Man United sub-story.
So we are not.
Okay.
Instead, no, I mean, I was thinking about Stu Holden. I was thinking more about Fabrice Muamba being a kind of his cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
That was in the season that Bolton were relegated. That definitely did not help team morale. Luckily, he recovered. I would say the one that most readily came to mind for me was Diego Costa's hamstring tear that he suffered right before the Champions League final when he was playing for Atletico Madrid the first time. That he
placenta.
He had
the
horse placenta treatment. He still started, but had to be subbed off after a very few number of minutes.
It's a huge mistake, right?
Yeah.
They should have just said, "Okay, you're injured.
Yeah.
We'll move to the next."
But now they've burned a sub in a game that was always going to be very physically demanding. So I think that his hamstring tear and then the decision to start him, I think, is a major reason why they ended up losing that Champions League final.
Yep.
And then I would say, this isn't a major one, but the other one that came fast to mind was Josie Altidore at the 2014 World Cup.
Yes.
That hamstring injury, forcing everything to sort of be changed around.
We were 1-0 up already, right?
Yeah.
There was that great move. Dempsey scored. It was all exciting. And then Altidore went down. It turns out that Aaron Johansson wasn't fully fit. Julian Green wasn't really a striker. Was Wondolowski on the roster? Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Klinsmann didn't want to trust him. That's why we ended up playing Clint Dempsey as a lone striker for the rest of the tournament. He's out of position.
And Michael
Bradley as a number 10. Altidore's injury kind of ruined planning for the roster ruined it as well.
And it's one of those things.
Sorry, I jumped all over you.
No, it's all good. But it is one of those things where removing that one player, yes, you have other players who can fill in. Yes, Clint Dempsey can score goals, obviously. But if he's been prepping to play as a number 10, it is a shift that is required to then be oh, wait, no, all that stuff I was learning, I actually got to do this differently, or all the stuff that I was ready to do is suddenly different. Same for Michael Bradley, same for everybody else who's now filling in. It's kind of a chain reaction. Not saying the U.S. would have won the World Cup or anything like that.
Saying that they got out of that group, right? So it wasn't a disaster.
Yeah. And then I've got one more to John's question, I would say. But I'll let you go first since I've talked for a while.
The other personal one for me is Wolves in 2003. So at the end of the 2002-03 season, Wolves were promoted to the Premier League for the very first time via the playoffs. Two of our standout players that season were Matt Murray, young goalkeeper, local guy who'd come through the system, Jolien Lescott, local guy who'd come through the system. They were absolutely unbeatable in the Championship. Both got really badly injured, missed the entire season in the Premier League. Wolves kind of panicked and bought players like Isaac Okoronkwo and Oleg Luzhny, guys who played international football for, I think, Ukraine and Nigeria, and people thought, maybe this will work. Those guys played 5 games each through the season. It did not work out at all. And then our best player...
Still not your worst centre-back signing, though, so that's good.
Yes, right. And then Jolien Lescott, just a year or two later, he basically gets fit and Everton sign him.
Well,
so we never got Jolien Lescott in the Premier League. We sank like a stone that season.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. But now you're back with all the money.
Yeah.
So that works. And no Jillian Lescott on your team, so that's even better. My final one was one that it did some deep diving to find this one, because I really was looking for a player that maybe his injury led to relegation. That wasn't a personal anecdote relating to Wolverhampton. Mine would be...
We would have won the Premier League that year.
I believe it, yeah. At the end of the 2011 season, Villarreal finished 4th, qualify for the Champions League, have an outstanding season. Giuseppe Rossi, 32 goals for Villarreal across all competitions. He was tied for 6th top scorer in La Liga behind Ronaldo, Messi, Aguero, and Negredo. Decent company. He was tied with Fernando Llorente, Roberto Soldado. David Villa was who he was up against in terms of that sort of level of scoring. ruptures his ACL in October of 2011, out for 557 days. Villarreal finished 18th, relegated that season.
Whoa.
I mean, other factors definitely. Santi Cazorla was sold in the offseason. He was a critical part of that team. But still, you miss basically Rossi by himself in La Liga the season before had 18 goals. They only scored 39 the entire season. So you think about maybe if he's there, does he score some goals? Do some losses become draws or wins? Do some draws become wins? Suddenly, I wonder if Villarreal stay up.
I'm glad you found one that wasn't directly related to England or Wolves. Yeah.
Or the United States.
Yeah, not directly related to the United
States. Certainly not. Certainly not.
Final question. Would you like to... okay, I'll do the honours. James Sweat wants to know, if you were designing the badge for a brand new club, how would you decide what to put on it? I love this question because he hasn't given us the specifics of the badge, so it's very much a theoretical question.
Yep.
So what would you put on a badge for a new club, Taylor?
So I know sometimes fan polls work to the benefit of the world. Number one, not putting this out to a fan poll. Maybe I'll do some sort of consensus building, asking members of the community, but we are not ending up with FC Soccer McSoccerface. That's not happening. So that's one part of it, I would say. Then from there, I would say that your two biggest strengths, if you're designing a badge for a brand new club, geography, because that mostly doesn't change, unless catastrophic events.
Or Anthony Precourt.
Well, that too. What I mean more so is that if you're saying I'm going to build a new Richmond team, I want a badge for the Richmond team. You've got the river, you've got greenery, so I feel like that plays into it. You want a river on your badge or something like that. Yeah. So that is a thing that won't necessarily change, and this is where I'm a little bit more not so certain, because I think regional connections are always good, not historical connections, as we've seen time and time again, where some cities want to have the year they were founded in their team name. Other people take exception to that, rightfully so, I would say, and so you've got issues there.
I see.
History can also not necessarily be your friend. Obviously, we're sitting in Richmond right now. Lots of schools still named after Confederate generals. Not necessarily ideal. So I think if you're going to go regional historical stuff, I would go more recent. So if I were going to do a Richmond club, I might do like the Richmond Brewers, since we have 8,000 breweries in Richmond now. And even if that, Sheffield United...
Every mid-sized city in America would be called the something Brewers.
I mean, that's fine.
I feel like everybody thinks their craft beer scene is special.
Yeah, but ours is. So maybe you have to go with your most highly rated brewery.
Yeah.
And that's what you are.
I
think I know what we would be.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'm not saying it out loud.
Me neither.
Any more to say?
Nope.
So I would say... I would just choose... So I have no design background, but I would choose one design element and go with it. The thing I would not do is try and choose multiple things to represent the team and ram them all onto a badge. Yep. I would just choose the one thing. I think a really good example, Kingston Stockade FC.
Agreed.
Their crest, their logo is excellent. And the reason is they chose Stockade.
Yep.
And they just took the stockade imagery of a stockade and made that central to the logo.
Yep.
And that was basically it. They just chose one thing, one really visually striking thing that's different to all the other soccer crests, and 100% went with it. I love their logo.
And went with it minimal style.
Yes.
You could have a very elaborately stick drawn stockade, or you could just do this sort of very standout bold image that they have gone for.
They're basically just bars, right?
Yeah.
But it's really arresting and striking.
I like it.
Which is the same word twice.
I would say pretty. That's fine.
I quite like the minimalist approach. I really like the new Juventus logo, which I know is not a popular opinion. It's just a J. That's a bold choice to just go, all right, we're going to be minimalistic, somewhat futuristic. We're just going to have the J for Juventus.
Maybe that's a key thing there. Yeah, you're right. Is just don't overthink it. You know what you are. If you're going to be Richmond FC, RFC with a star, that's fine.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, maybe
totally
that's
works.
a bit too much, but you're right. Once you start, if you're going to go with mine of the Brewers, but also Richmond is strong, and or the river is strong, and there's lots of hiking. Suddenly you've got a whole bunch of stuff happening in one crest. You've got the best idea.
A drunk person going for a hike.
That could be fun.
The other thing, contra what you said. I might crowdsource it, but not in a send us all your best ideas and we'll jam them all together. More in, there are so many good graphic designers around. And I kind of think the type of cities that would have soccer teams are the type of cities that have endless graphic designers, many of them very talented. I might say, as a starting point, everybody send us your best designs, and we might, don't guarantee that you'll choose one, but just see if there's one that you like.
I don't disagree with that at all. What I'm saying is that if you put it up in a poll of this one, or this one, or you have a write-in option, the internet will run riot with that one, and you will become a soccer mixographer.
But you get what I'm saying about just opening it up to entries from people in your community?
Yep.
I mean, you can pay the winner. You can call it a contest if you like, but you can also have no winner if you don't like anyone's entries. I think that would be the first thing that I do. I think that would be worth doing.
All right.
Yeah.
Can the Richmond logo just be thumbs down to Northern Virginia? Is that allowed?
I'm hoping our Nova listeners are not switching off right now. I guess you can speak ill of Nova as a former Nova resident.
Oh, no, I'm mostly just the traffic. That's all I'm speaking. I don't know how you get that onto a crest. Just a bunch of cars sitting on 95 with an X through it. This might be my second traffic reference in like 4 shows. That's not good. I got to cut that out.
I talked about it with Bodure on his Rant and
Nobody wants to hear about traffic. It's one of those 7 things that nobody ever wants to hear about.
How about a dream that I had that you weren't in?
This is me staring at you.
Thank you to James for that question. We'll have more listener questions on tomorrow's Total Soccer show. Before we move on to the scouting reports, I also want to mention this is not an ad, but just a reminder that we recently started a sponsorship deal with Ancestry DNA. Mm-hmm. We will be we've got our DNA results. We got them. We will be revealing them on tomorrow's Total Soccer show. On Wednesday's show, as part of the Ancestry DNA ad, we will let you know our DNA and our ancestry.
This feels like a cliffhanger ending to
it does,
show.
Yeah. ...
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week
tomorrow
to find out what Taylor's made of. If you'd like to do your own, I might as well do a mini ad read, right? If you'd like to do your own DNA test, you can go to ancestry.com/DNA. Use TSS20, TSS20 for 20% off the regular price. More on that on Thursday's show.
I think my wife once said that my brain, in her mind, is just rainbows and gummy bears. So there you go. That's what I'm made of. I'm also made of scouting networks. I don't know how I did that one. That wasn't a very good transition.
It was not.
We've got some scouting reports to get to, starting with Mazikeen Fagner scouting Andre Onana, the 22-year-old Cameroonian midfielder for Ajax.
Wait, no, he's a goalkeeper.
He's a goalkeeper. I might have written that one wrong. There appears to be a
Mazikeen knows where he plays.
I would say so.
I'm sure. That's going to be a Taylor typo.
That's fine. I'll take that one. There appears to be a players' revolt happening at Ajax after their disappointing season under manager Erik ten Hag, with De Ligt, Onana, and Kluivert all indicating they want out unless massive changes happen to the coach and leadership. Onana has especially burned bridges by accusing CEO Edwin van der Sar and Director of Football Mark Overmars of making us play, and then a euphemism for feces, says Mazikeen.
He's making them come up with euphemisms for feces?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And they were like, shouldn't we be practicing soccer? Ben Richards is scouting Efrain Alvarez. I know what Efrain Alvarez did. Efrain Alvarez is a 15-year-old Mexican-American midfielder for Los Dos. That's Los Angeles Galaxy's USL team. Ben says, 4 days after scoring his first professional goal, Efrain Alvarez went ahead and scored his first professional hat-trick in a 6-3 win over St. Louis FC. For the first goal, I've seen these goals as well, Alvarez made a smart run between the defenders, latched onto a perfect ball in from John Requejo, and slotted home past the keeper. For the third goal, Alvarez hit a low burner from about 20 yards out that surprised the keeper. And I'm going to say, surprised me. Every time I watch it, I don't know this shot is coming.
Yep.
He shocks everyone with this. But Ben says he's gone non-chronological. I like it. The second goal was the pick of the two. Alvarez intercepted and attempted a clearance, dribbled past a few defenders. Oh, he intercepted an attempted clearance. He dribbled past a few defenders, including a nasty cutback. Then he bent a shot with his left foot just inside the far post. The impressive work makes him the youngest ever player to score a hat-trick in the USL. I haven't mentioned his age since we started the scouting report. He is 15 years old.
He is.
15 years old, and he is clowning people in USL.
And why am I not excited about him, Daryl Grove?
Because he chose to represent Mexico, and he's currently with their U17s.
But previously had contacts, and I believe was in camp with the U.S. national team.
Yeah. But he hasn't played in any official tournaments. There is unlike Jonathan Gonzalez, there is a chance that we can get Efrain Alvarez back to the USA side.
We shall see. In the meantime,
there's good in him. I felt it.
We've got reports from Doug Chan scouting Andrija Novakovic, the 21-year-old American forward on loan at Telstar from Reading. On Thursday, Novakovic scored Telstar's second goal in their 3-2 first leg win over De Graafschap. He then scored a penalty for Telstar in Sunday's losing effort against De Graafschap. That makes sense. His strike leveled the aggregate scoreline at 5-5, but Telstar were eventually eliminated from the Eredivisie playoffs playoffs, courtesy of a late winner. Novakovic is all but confirmed to be called up for the U17's May 28th friendly against Bolivia.
I didn't know this. I didn't know that Telstar had failed to get promoted. I guess he's not tied to them forever, right? He's going to go back to Reading, I assume. Okay.
I would say he's not tied to them at all anymore.
But he did score a bunch of goals.
Yeah.
Alex Forbes is scouting Reggie Cannon, the 19-year-old American right back for FC Dallas. Alex says Reggie Cannon has now started 8 straight for Dallas. While his defensive positioning and passing in the final third have plenty of room for improvement, he is by no means the weak link on the back line, nor the culprit for Dallas's lack of scoring. His blazing pace has helped him recover defensively, and he is slowly learning how to use it to his advantage in the attack.
Scott Gleich scouting George Acosta, the 18-year-old American midfielder for Boca Juniors. Acosta signed with Boca Juniors in April and will reportedly start next season with their reserve squad. Boca is the current champion and league leaders of the Argentine Primera Division, so senior minutes might be unlikely.
Primera División.
Sí, por supuesto. This may prove to be a good move for him, as Argentina in particular has a habit of developing number 10s.
So George Acosta is the new Diego Maradona.
Obviously.
Ed Ritter is scouting Ben Mines, the 18-year-old American striker for the New York Red Bulls. Ben wasn't in the 18 for the Red Bulls' 2-1 road victory over the Colorado Rapids, but he did have reason to celebrate as he turned 18 on Sunday. Ben also has pledged to participate in Playing for Pride, a fundraiser for the human rights campaign run by one-time Red Bull and current North Carolina FC player Austin Deleuze. Ed thinks Deleuze's program might be a good segment on the TSS show. Darryl and Taylor agree.
We sure do.
We talked offline about this.
We did.
And by offline, I mean we texted back and forth.
I was wondering what that meant. Yes, we sure did. John Youngblood scouting...
Also, we're not online right now. I'm very confused.
It's okay. It's late. John Youngblood scouting Rio Rivaldo Griffiths, the 17-year-old English striker for Tottenham. It seems late. Rio Griffiths, made Spurs fans nervous with a tweet that said "off to Germany" with a German flag. Considering the RB Leipzig links, but it turns out he was with Spurs U19s as they play in the Volksbank Cup. The U19 competition features the likes of Rangers, Lokomotiv Moscow, and Fulham.
Go on, Rio.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Marzak is getting Pione Sisto, the 23-year-old Danish attacker for Celta Vigo. Ryan says Pione played the full match against Deportivo La Coruña and had an average performance. Celta Vigo are 14th in La Liga with 1 match to play. Sisto may want to cash in on a move to a bigger club before it's too late if he has a successful summer. Update, I believe I saw his name on the Denmark roster.
I believe you did. Patrick Dust scouting Jonas Kubler, the 19-year-old German midfielder for Schalke, not included in Germany's provisional squad, I believe.
There was some competition.
The season is over for the U19 Bundesliga, and Schalke have topped their conference by 9 points. Lil Yanni, as Patrick calls him, has done his part, captaining the side in 18 of 26 matches, scoring 3 goals. Giannis will be ineligible for the U19's next season, so Patrick is hoping for either a promotion to the first team or a successful loan spell elsewhere.
I would say the same for Nick Tatagui, right? He's probably the same age. Will Herson is scouting Ryan Sessegnon, the 17-year-old English left-sider for Fulham. Will says, after a 23-game unbeaten streak, Ryan and Fulham have chosen the worst possible time to do their Arsene Wenger tribute. 2 games, 2 losses, 70% possession, no finish and leaky defence. Ryan was subbed out of the first leg of the playoff away to Derby County after a fairly anonymous evening, and there's now work to do Monday night back at Craven Cottage.
Update. After an uninspired performance in the first leg of the championship playoff against Derby County, Ryan did his hero thing on Monday and led Fulham to Wembley. In the 47th minute, Seth chested down a ball from Stefan Johansson and blasted it into the top corner from 6 yards out to draw level on aggregate. Will is also confident that Seth took a corner kick that Dennis Odoi headed home in the 67th minute for a 2-1 aggregate lead. Seth shifted to left wingback late in the game and did just fine. Fulham will now play Aston Villa for the promotion final.
I saw this goal as well. It's really good. He's in the box and it looks like he's heading to the right and he chests it somehow to the left.
Yep.
And then smashes it left-footed top corner. Ryan Sessegnon has to be in the Premier League next season, whether with Fulham or another team.
And even if Fulham are there, might be difficult to keep him there. I would hope he wouldn't leave because it's guaranteed playing time. Yeah. But I really do love when maybe I'd be critical if he had missed it, I don't know, but he very obviously was like, look, if I'm going to shoot this, I want it on my left foot, and he does everything he needs to do to make sure that he is rocketing that one with the left foot.
Also, I'm going to see if I can put a hole in this net.
There is that too. I think since I updated yours, I'll keep going. John Fernandez scouting Borja Mayoral, the 20-year-old Spanish striker for Real Madrid. Borja Mayoral en fuego? Question mark, says John Fernandez. I think there's a C in there. Borja made substitute appearances for both of Real Madrid's games, scoring in the midweek fixture against Sevilla and providing a lovely assist for Toni Kroos in the weekend match against Celta Vigo. He now has 7 goals in all competitions this season for Madrid, getting hot at the right time if he's going to look for a loan move away from the Bernabeu this summer.
En fuego! Guy Jedwab is scouting Serge Gnabry, the 22-year-old German wide forward, and on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich. Gnabry watched Hoffenheim qualify for the Champions League on the final day of the season. Once he returns from injury, a fight for his place is on hand. Bayern has re-signed Robben and Ribéry for another year, and Douglas Costa may be returning from the loan at Juventus if they don't trigger the buyout clause. Serge Gnabry constantly on loan and in search of minutes.
And in contention for spots, but maybe challenging as well. George Nisbet scouting Pablo Maffeo, the 20-year-old Spanish right wing-back on loan at Girona from Manchester City. That is no longer accurate. Pablo was a starter in the 1-0 loss against Valencia on Sunday. Rumors that a move to the Bundesliga was in the making were confirmed this morning. That would be Monday morning, when a €9 million move was agreed between City and Stuttgart. He will be a Stuttgart player permanently, at least for the foreseeable future.
This was part of the Stuttgart buying frenzy that you mentioned on Monday. Do your shopping, Stuttgart. Ryan Marzak is scouting Josh Onoma, the 21-year-old English midfielder on loan at Villa from Tottenham. Josh went the full 90 against Millwall on May 6th. It's May 15th, and was then in the squad but did not play in the first leg of the Championship playoff semi-final. Against Millwall, he showed good moments and smart decision-making, including a good run into the box that ended with an easily saved shot. So, update on that, Onoma is part of the Villa team that is now in the EFL Championship playoff final. I don't know if he'll start or not. It seems 50-50, but he's got a chance to be part of that Villa team.
So, Lyndon Gooch versus Tim Ream and Luca De La Torre? That's what I'm hearing.
Is that right?
I mean, that's how I'm choosing to bill this one, as Villa v Fulham. Yeah, why not?
Lyndon Gooch?
Isn't he? Oh, no, he's with Sunderland.
He finished bottom of the Championship with Sunderland.
We do have somebody at Villa, though. I think they're just very young.
Yeah, it was Indiana Vasilev.
There we go.
Yes.
Maybe Lyndon Gooch gets U18. Who knows? Taylor Mukaria scouting Ademola Lookman, the 20-year-old English forward on loan at RB Leipzig from Everton and also for Aston Villa. I'm just going to assume everybody plays for Aston Villa now. Ademola Lookman, in the final game of the Bundesliga season, Lookman scored another goal and assisted on 2 more in a 6-2 road win over Hertha Berlin. So in a half-season loan, Lookman played 576 minutes, scored 5 goals and assisted on 3 others. Overall, it appears to have been a successful loan, and we'll now have to wait to see what comes of it this summer.
Can I offer one final thing on Fulham?
You may.
I watched some of their playoff game. Tim Ream, it seems, is a hero at Fulham. Every time he heads a ball clear or clears a ball with his feet, all the Fulham fans just go, Ream.
Wow.
They just yell that noise every time he defends and clears.
At least
in the 20 minutes or so that I was watching, that's what they did.
I like that a lot.
It was good stuff.
I'll take it. What about Luca De La Torre? What do they do when he sits on the bench?
They're like, who's that guy? He's probably good. Thank you to everybody for today's scouting reports. Taylor and I will be back tomorrow with another Total Soccer show, all listener questions. To give you a view behind the curtain, we're recording it late Tuesday night. So if anything big happens Wednesday morning, we won't be able to address it. If you would like to support the Total Soccer Show, you can not only support our advertisers, you can sign up to support us at totalsoccershow.com/join. All the information will be there. You can also support us by spreading the word, boost the signal, let people know that our World Cup previews are coming. Do it in a Ned Stark voice if you can.
If you can. You probably should.
Taylor Rockwell, I want to commend you for staying on your line. You haven't moved the whole show. Really impressive. No cards to you. But also thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.